And welcome to Bulls and Red, your go-to RB Leipzig podcast. Broadcasting straight from the heart of Leipzig, we bring you the latest buzz from the club, the fan base, now vibrant city. Whether you're near or far, this is your ultimate home for all things RB Leipzig. Stay tuned, stay passionate, and let's ride the Rasenballsport wave together. And again, what kind of wave that is, we keep wondering. Welcome everybody, and thank you for listening to Bulls and Red. Today I would love to welcome Richard. However, we didn't get our schedules aligned, so Richard's not here. I'm doing this solo for now. However, Richard is a great guy because he has pre-recorded his preview of our next opponent, his analysis of SV Werder Bremen, and we're gonna be able to listen to that a little bit later. It's in German. I'm going to try to translate the main points, and hopefully that'll give you the gist of how he sees RB Leipzig can actually be successful on Saturday. And I guess we will have to be. Also, this week we plan to do a joint session with our friends of It's Not Easy Being Green, North American, Canadian podcast of SV Werder Bremen. Unfortunately, we need to postpone that as well to next week, and hope we are able to catch up with them next week to have one of these extraordinary episodes, because I think it's going to get out of control, but very entertaining. So before we start, let's have a quick look back at last Saturday when we hosted the mighty FC Bayern München, who are now actually champions of the Bundesliga, but fortunately, they didn't get to celebrate in Leipzig. But when they took the 3-2 lead in the second half, they did celebrate, letting off quite a bit of fireworks as well. I think that was not so nice, a little bit arrogant, but hey, if you want to do that, that's fine. But there was really one guy on the pitch who thought, not in my house, you're not going to party in my house, and he waited until the very last moment. And everybody has to know the name of our Partycrasher, party pooper is... Exactly. Never forget that. And if you wish to see a little clip of that, we publish that on X Twitter and also on Bluesky. Have a look at that clip. You can see the build-up, you can see the goal, and us celebrating. So when everybody left the stadium, we ended up on a high, because it was just so great to see those Bayern Munich fans celebrating in a very arrogant way. And in the end, they were a bit quiet, especially when Yusuf Pausen scored. They were really quiet. Of course, afterwards, they started celebrating again. And well done to them. Congratulations to the 150,000th championship of the Bundesliga. I think it was the 34th title for FC Bayern Munich. München. Well done, guys. So, as I mentioned before, we left the stadium, we discussed, and we finished on a high, but on the way home I already realized that Mr. David Raum, who contributed so much in that match, would be missing for the next match because he picked up his 5th yellow card. And that made me a little bit angry, because I was thinking back of the week before when in Frankfurt he wasn't even on the pitch, but he picked up a yellow card. Yes, it's great to show character, enthusiasm and passion, but maybe in a better way. So now he's missing, and again, we will miss the energy, the passion, and the quality he brings to the RB Leipzig attacking game, and the fight, and the spirit, all of that. But we'll find out from Richard later on how we can possibly compensate that. And that feeling of being on a high started disappearing a little bit on Saturday night already, when we saw the performance of the Bumblebees, who passed us, and the next day Freiburg passed us as well. So there are 2 teams ahead of us. We're sitting there at 50 points. BVB, they got 51. Freiburg are at 52. And the 2 teams have to slip up, and we cannot slip up in order to get into the Champions League. So, to be honest, in reality, it's out of our hands. And that is an unusual situation because we haven't had that for many years. We were always in the driving seat until the end of the season. However, no driving seat this time. And it's not even certain that we're going to be playing in Europe next season as well. Some people take it in a sarcastic and humorous way that it was the plan all along to aim for the Conference League, so the 6th spot, in order to take part in the competition, which the final will take next year at home in Leipzig. But I can't imagine that because there is so much money attached to the whole thing. So when this feeling kind of subsided this high, it did continue for me a little bit downhill this week because I was reading this interview that Sky Sports did with Benjamin Sesko. And if you just read the headlines, it's a bit disheartening. So, okay, on one hand, he says he's still focused and committed on RB Leipzig in the next 2 games, but anything can happen in the summer. Anything is open. And you see other stories which talk about, hey, it might be a record transfer for RB Leipzig, maybe more than 90 million euros, more money than we've taken in with Joško Gvardiol. And especially if you miss the international competition next year, it's probably going to be the case that we do need the money. And same applies for other players, including Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons, by the way, I think he had a very good performance on Saturday. He played for the team, he was fighting, he wasn't complaining that much. So really appreciating he had 2 vital assists. And of course, Sesko with the first goal. And the third goal where Xavi Simons gave a wonderful assist as well. You can see this on this little clip as well. So, yeah, there was one headline where maybe it was translated the wrong way, what Sesko said, but he said there is no more pressure this season and it's basically out of our hands. We need to perform as good as possible and see how far up we get into the table. But the translation of not being under any pressure anymore can be totally misinterpreted. It sounds to me like the team doesn't give 100% anymore, where now should be the time when they really should be under pressure and really focus to, just get that extra little strength out of there, that extra little quality in order to win those 2 games. And yes, of course, it's right that the whole thing is out of our hands because those 2 teams ahead of us, they have to slip up. And if they don't, they don't. We can't influence that. But you have to try to believe until the end. And I didn't see that. So a little bit perplexed about this headline that I saw there. And I might misinterpret it my way because I'm just a fan or a client who's looking into that there from the outside. But hopefully I'm wrong. And hopefully they're just giving it all. And we get to 6 points. Now, by the way, after 27 match weeks, I kind of predicted the last 6 match weeks and see how we do. We actually ended up in 6th place with 56 points, or 55 points. We're not going to get the 55 points. It's either 56 or 54 or even less. So we'll see. I didn't think that Borussia Dortmund would get into the top 5. I did see Mainz in there. I didn't see Freiburg in there, and definitely didn't see Stuttgart in there, but Stuttgart is not going to be there at all anyway. So we shall see. Let's keep our fingers crossed and see how it's going. On the other hand, Richard did a prediction and he saw us in 3rd place. I have to ask him if we're still in course with that. Might get a little bit difficult. I'd like to turn your attention to a former player of ours who always express the spirit and fight and enthusiasm for RB Leipzig, and that's Marcel Halstenberg. As you know, Marcel Halstenberg left RB Leipzig a couple of years ago to join his, so to speak, home club, Hannover 96, in the 2nd Bundesliga. And he has recently announced that he's going to retire from football, soccer, and he's going to step down. Now, RB Leipzig published a lot of words of gratitude, and we'd just like to join in. You may remember that Marcel has about 240 caps under his belt in his 8-year spell at RB Leipzig, and the most famous ones for me are the ones in the DFB Pokal finals, especially the first one that we won in 2022 when we played SC Freiburg And in the second half, he took one for the team, was sent off. Something a lot of people didn't realize. Only we realized it after the match. And they were just wondering why RB Leipzig played so much better when he left. Well, RB Leipzig didn't perform better because he left. It's just because it instilled them with a lot of enthusiasm and fighting for their teammate Marcel, who gave it all on the pitch. And everybody remembers that equalizer by Christopher Nkunku. That was so unbelievable. The huge chance we got before the end of the match. We could have finished that in normal time. And of course, everybody was happy. And I think above all, Marcel Halste was happy. So happy after winning and holding that trophy. In the following year, in 2023, when RB Leipzig beat Eintracht Frankfurt, he was also featuring in the squad and seemed to be a little bit more relaxed when he lifted the trophy. So to you, Marcel Heisenberg, warm words of gratitude. Thank you very much for your service, for your time, for your enthusiasm, and your support with RB Leipzig all these years. You are remembered as one of the club legends of RB Leipzig. We wish you all the best. So let's start turning our attention to the upcoming match versus Werder Bremen in Bremen. And something I picked up on the internet in the last couple of days, the ultras of SV Werder Bremen, i.e. especially the group Infamous Youth, are organizing a Fanwalk on their last home match to the stadium. It's from the Market Square to the stadium. RB Leipzig will also have a fan walk before their last home match next week, starting at 11 o'clock downtown, and then taking up a route to the stadium as well. So next Saturday, the SV Werder supporters will join in their thousands. I think last time this was last year, and about 9,000 people joined them, and they will walk up to the stadium loud and proud, and of course hurling abuse as well at RB Leipzig, because we're such an artificial club and we are used to this. Thank you. Please don't drink any Red Bull, because there should be more left for us. That's what I'm saying. And we wish everybody from Leipzig or who's supporting RB Leipzig, who will be in the away section supporting the team, hey, all the best. Be loud, be proud. See what happens. It's all we can do. Trying to support the team as much as we can. Thank you guys for traveling out to Bremen. By the way, Bremen is a very cute city in German. There is a saying that this is a village with a tram, ein Dorf mit Straßenbahn. If you can get a chance and do some sightseeing, do visit Bremen. It's always worth a trip. So let's all listen to what Richard has to say about SV Werder Bremen and how RB Leipzig should approach this tremendously important match.
Introducing our next opponent, their Gegnercheck.
So Richard starts by pointing out that he actually likes the way SV Werder Bremen usually plays, because you never know what you're going to get. It's always a surprise. And some of the clubs in the Bundesliga he does like. And if he wasn't a supporter of RB Leipzig already, he might really like SV Werder Bremen. However, this has to be put in the background for this weekend, because RB Leipzig needs a victory to get into Europe next season.
Wenn mein Herz jedenfalls in der Bundesliga nicht schon an Leipzig vergeben wäre. Ich könnte mir vorstellen, hier für Bremen Sympathien zu empfinden.
And Richard is pretty optimistic that it can work, that RB Leipzig is able to succeed at Bremen, and he will tell us how. So last time RB Leipzig played SV Werder Bremen at home, we beat them 4-2, and it was arguably the best performance of the season that he's witnessed. And circumstances before the game were quite similar to the ones that we see right now. Werder Bremen was behind us in 7th spot with 25 points, and RB Leipzig was sitting in 4th spot with 27 points. And you may remember that RB Leipzig just had come away of that great defeat at Munich, 1-5. We also lost Benny Henrichs due to an injury in the very last second of the match, and he hasn't returned ever since. And Werder Bremen just come off a 4-1 win versus Union Berlin, so they came in oozing with a lot of confidence. And the real possibility to jump ahead of RB Leipzig, and that would have been something for RB Leipzig, and maybe Marco Rose would have had to leave the team even earlier if RB Leipzig had dropped behind Werder Bremen only after half of the season.
Sicherlich gesorgt. Am Kotterweg, wenn dann plötzlich RB sich nach nicht mal der Hälfte der Bundesliga-Saison hinter Bremen hätte wiedergefunden.
Well, fortunately, RB Leipzig was able to beat Werder Bremen, and in the meantime, RB Leipzig has built up a little lead if compared to Werder Bremen of 3 points. So that means for Saturday, even if Werder Bremen beats RB Leipzig, they'll still be behind RB Leipzig because of the better goal difference that RB Leipzig has in comparison as well. However, if Mainz does manage to win in their match on Saturday, we will drop out of the top 6, still with the possibility of regaining that spot on match week 34. However, we need to depend on Mainz slipping up. On the other hand, 3 points would be so vital to secure that 6th spot. And even in the case of Dortmund and Freiburg taking home wins on that day, it then will still be possible to qualify for the Champions League on match week 34, or at least keep spot number 6 to qualify for the Conference League. And you all know that might be the secret cunning plan, because the final of the Conference League next year is at home in Leipzig. Finale daheim.
Oder eben was BVB zu Hause gegen Vizekusen so auf die Kette bringt.
So if we look at the situation of which players are available to our coach, Jolt Löw, we'll notice that Willi Orban is not available, and of course Benny Henrichs is still out. Also, a new addition to the injury list is Haidara, and he's probably going to be out for the rest of the season, which is the next 2 games. Suspended, we have Raum and Campos, so they're not available. And in the starting lineup, we are not able to expect Savaschlager and Aslan to feature there, so we shall see. On the other hand, SV Werder Bremen is in a much better shape. Riedel has come back after an injury, and everybody's on board, apart from Velkovic. So in theory, Ole Werner, the coach of SV Werder Bremen, has a huge choice. However, Richard notices that quite a few players are a little bit further away from the performance needed to get into the first squad, including, well, the player we sent them to hopefully impact in a not so positive way against us, and that's André Silva. So he's not going to feature in the starting lineup.
So zum Beispiel auch unser portugiesischer Sabotageversuch.
Richard has a look at the last 5 matches ever since Jolt Löw took over, and during that time, SV Werder Bremen managed to gain 11 points, RB Leipzig 8, but in these 5 matches, SV Werder Bremen only conceded 3 goals, admittedly versus teams that are not known for huge offensive power, but one of these teams included Eintracht Frankfurt. He's going to look at that a little bit more closer, because that could be the copy or template for how SV Werder Bremen is going to approach the match versus RB Leipzig.
Und zuvor gegen Frankfurt blieben sie auch ohne Gegentor. Und das Spiel habe ich mir noch mal ganz besonders angeschaut, jetzt in der Vorbereitung. Weil das könnte so eine Blaupause dafür sein, was uns am Sonnabend erwartet. Was war damals los?
So, let's have a look how SV Werder Bremen beat Eintracht Frankfurt 2-0 that time. First of all, when Richard looks at the statistics, he notices that Werder Bremen had not so much ball possession, only 38%, and Eintracht Frankfurt didn't produce anything dangerous in the final third with 9 attempts, none of them on target. And Richard concedes that those kind of statistics is very familiar to him because RB Leipzig has similar stats in this season.
Die sind mir total vertraut von Leipzig von dieser Saison.
During that match, SV Werder Bremen's style was a straightforward, fast type of football, which enable them to get to the opponent's box really, really quickly and in a very fast and efficient way. Now, in order to stop them, it's going to be inevitable to commit fouls here and there, and that's when the danger of SV Werder Bremen really kicks in, because the set pieces are one of their big strengths, and it doesn't matter where they start from, they will always end up in the penalty box, and you have players like Berg or Stay who are very strong and will try to convert those chances. In Richard's view, RB Leipzig should really try to avoid those situations. Easier said than done, I suppose. But they practice this every day, don't they?
Oder auch Berg, der gerne mal nach einer Ecke dann da richtig steht. Da müssen wir wirklich, wirklich aufpassen und wenn es geht, solche Standards unbedingt verhindern.
Richard believes that this match could be similarly difficult like the one versus Kiel at home, and he puts it down to potentially a three-man defense that SV Werder Bremen is going to apply. And every time our opponents did that, RB Leipzig looked particularly challenged, let me put it that way. And what Kiel did is to really play in a similar style, fast-forward, straightforward football, overload their right-hand side, and he expects that for SV Werder to do as well, with players like Weiser, like Schmitz, like Berg, who are really strong in those positions. And on the left-hand side, in terms of our defense, we seem to have a couple of communication issues between the two players that are likely going to feature. That's Chad and Castello. And these need to be avoided. They have to coordinate much, much better. It cannot happen that any mistakes are going to happen and any room and any gaps to be allowed for the opponents because of that. And also, the intensity has to be extremely high of all RB Leipzig players, but definitely, especially in our defense, because otherwise, according to Richard, RB Leipzig is not going to have any chance to get anything in Bremen.
Und da muss die Intensität auf den Platz gebracht werden, die seinesgleichen sucht. Sonst können wir dort nicht bestehen.
So, what are the strengths that RB Leipzig can actually apply? Well, it is speed and also players like Sesko. Now, Sesko will cause the defense of SV Werder Bremen quite a bit of difficulties because they do not have anybody to match him. And he is the tall guy, and in terms of speed, he's very fast and also has the techniques. So speed and power is of the essence here, but he can't do it himself, of course, because it is a team catching. The likes of Xavi Simons, Nusa, Nedeljkovic, they all have to contribute, they all have to help. The whole team has to be moving. And with a lot of pace, they need to attack the end third of SV Werder Bremen. And Richard recommends not to make it too complicated. Play around the box, back and forth, and trying to do it in little combinations. No, straightforward football, and above all, finish the attack. So the ball has to end up in the box, has to end up either in goal or in the byline, behind the byline. So RB Leipzig is able to regroup themselves and go back, because what SV Werder Bremen is really good at is a fast counter-attack. They have a lot of speed, so losing the ball is not an option. Werder Bremen is going to approach this game with a high level of intensity. RB Leipzig needs to accept that, match that, take it a notch higher in order, well, to get these 3 points. We need them.
Der Ball muss dann entweder aufs Tor oder wenigstens irgendwie über die Torlinie gedrückt werden, dass dort erstmal sich wieder sortiert werden kann.
And Richard refers to that intensity and high level of energy by looking at the semi-final of the Conference League when Tottenham Hotspurs played the Norwegian encounter Bode. I know Tottenham Hotspurs did win the first leg 3-0, so in the second leg the Norwegian underdog didn't have any chance, to be honest, but they tried and they put a lot of effort, a lot of high level of intensity, a lot of energy into the match. And Tottenham did not lose that match. From the first second, they matched that intensity and kept that going until the 92nd or 93rd minute. When they cleared the ball to the corner, you could see that they were really celebrating, and that's despite the fact that the tie was already decided. It was clear that Tottenham Hotspurs would progress to the finals, but Richards claims that we do need this kind of intensity in order to score more goals than SV Werder, because Richard believes that Werder Bremen will strike at least once. That concludes his view on the match and his ideas how RB Leipzig can approach this match in order to beat SV Werder Bremen. But surely Coach Jolt Löw has even better ideas. So let's keep our fingers crossed. So who's going to be on the pitch?
Das würde einfach mehr treffen als die Grünen von der See. Wer beginnt für uns?
Liebe Fußballfans, wir kommen jetzt zu unserer heutigen Mannschaftsaufstellung.
So in goal, Jolt Löw's going to start with Martin van der Voort, although I just listened to the press conference and I think Gulaschi is actually fit to return to the team, so we might be wrong right there. In defense, we're going to feature Nedeljkovic, Klostermann, Chadbichabu, and Castello, Lukepa in our defensive midfield. Richard sees Seiwald and Vermeeren because basically there's nobody else left, to be honest. Offensive midfield, Nusa and Xavi, and it's important that Nusa is able to be very creative and to take the weight of a little bit of the shoulders of Xavi Simons in terms of creativity. And in our attack, Sesko and Penda are the two strikers that we're going to see. And I'm not sure why, but Mr. Richard is really optimistic. And in terms of scoreline prediction, he features SV Werder Bremen 2, RB Leipzig 5. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this actually happens.
Das war's. Ich freue mich. Wünsche euch ganz viel Spaß und allen, die da hinfahren. Genießt es.
Well, thank you, Richard. It is much appreciated. Thank you for listening, everyone. This concludes another edition of Bulls Red, our RB Leipzig podcast from the heart of Leipzig. We shall return next week. Keep your fingers crossed. Support our team. Have a great weekend. And I'd like to conclude with Auf geht's, Leipziger Jungs.